All right, so we are here today to talk about physical activity in a preschool setting. Why are we choosing this topic today? Well, like previous webinars have discussed, we do have new requirements from childcare licensing that will be published later this year that will enhance the physical activity requirements in our licensed programs. This was all from Senate Bill 952, which we advocated for and supported last year in our legislation. We've actually been pushing this piece of legislation for several sessions now, and me personally, I was very excited that it was passed and that it's being written into our minimum standards. For those of you that have not watched my Facebook Live video on the proposed changes to the child care minimum standards in the fall of 2020, I'm just going to give you in a nutshell that you will be required, those of you that are have children that are in care 8 hours or more, you'll be required to have at least 60 minutes of outside time each day that weather permits. And you will be required to have at least 90 minutes of physical activity each day for the children that are in your care 8 hours or more. And the 90 minutes of active play can be a combination of your outside time plus physical activity in the classroom. So you can combine the two together. So I don't want you to think that you have to have an hour of outside time and then a 90 additional minutes of physical activity throughout the day for a total of 2.5 hours. That's not the case, all right? So you can take the 90 minutes of active play and put the 60 minutes of outside time together however you choose to do it in your program. For those of you that are open less than 8 hours a day, then you're going to prorate the requirements, all right, based on the number of hours that you're open. And if you need help doing that, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email and we can work through that together. When we talk about 90 minutes of physical activity or active play each day, that is also a combination of moderate to vigorous active play. Moderate active play, a good example of moderate active play is when you're doing some movement, you're doing a song and dance, but you can still talk freely without losing your breath, all right, or without having to catch your breath. That would be moderate active play. Vigorous active play is when you're doing a movement game, you're doing an activity, and you can't have a free conversation because of the physical activity. That would be something that is vigorous, all right? So I think that's the best way to kind of describe the difference between the two. You are going to be required to have a combination of both moderate and vigorous throughout the day. We want to get that heart pumping. We want to get that blood flowing in the children's body, get that blood flowing up to the brain so that we can have optimal learning, all right? And we're going to talk a lot today about the benefits of active play and the age-appropriate active play for your program and what classroom you're in. Now, the other thing that I just wanted to throw out there right here at the beginning, and I'll probably bring this up later on in the webinar, is that one of the new licensing rules that you're also going to see is that you cannot withhold active play from a child due to behavior. All right? So as a form of discipline, you can't take away their active play. And again, I am so happy that they've added this to the minimum standards because your kids, especially those that are struggling with discipline, need the physical movement. They need that physical activity. That's probably one of the reasons why they are being defiant, is because they're not getting enough physical movement. All right, so I'm happy that they've added that in there. All right, here we go. So we're going to talk about gross motor development and we're going to talk about fine motor development. All right, gross motor development is going to be your large muscles. So those of you that are playing along with me, let's do this together. Our large muscles are going to be our head, our torso, our arms, and our legs, all right? So your head, torso, arms, and your legs, those are your large muscles. So when you're doing your activity plan and you're creating different physical activities in your classroom, you want to include head, torso, arms, and legs, all right? We also want to make sure that we include physical activities that are using fine muscles or your small muscles. And a great example of some of your small muscles are your eyes, your hands, and your fingers, all right? Hands, fingers, and eyes are all examples of small muscles. Another really important thing that you want to keep into consideration is that development occurs first in the head region, and then the torso, and last the legs and the feet. So depending on what classroom you're working in, this is how I kind of like to explain it. The younger the child, higher up on the body is what you're going to focus on. So think about the infants that you have in your infant classroom. If you have a newborn infant, a 6-week-old infant, they're very fragile. They don't even have the strength to hold up their own head. So that's why we want to support the head and hold the neck with those young babies. And as they continue to develop and grow, one of the first muscles that they develop is the muscles in their neck so that they can hold up their heavy head. Facebook Live, hopefully you're catching back up with me right now. So we are talking about the rudimentary motor phase. These are your young children, 6 months and younger. So what the activities that you want to plan here with your rudimentary motor phase, again, is rolling over, sitting, crawling, creeping, standing with support, and then eventually walking. These are all of the children's first voluntary actions for you, all right? Now we move into the toddler classroom, and in the toddler and 2-year-old classroom, this is when things get fun. So when you're planning your physical activities in the toddler 2-year-old classroom and moving into your preschool and pre-K classrooms, this is when the fundamental motor phase kicks in, all right? And with the fundamental motor phase, these are going to include activities such as running, jumping, hopping, skipping, galloping, throwing, catching, and pincer movements, all right? Pincer movements right here. These are all fundamental motor phase activities. Now, I know this is a lot for y'all to take in, and some of you may be taking notes on what we're talking about right there. I'm actually going to post a document on my website, timthetrainer.com, that's going to give you a lot of this information. It's not there. Those of you that are on the live event right now, it's not there yet, but I will have it posted by this afternoon. So those of you that are watching the video, you know, that's been recorded, it should be up on the website by the time you watch this. But this is a lot for you to take in, and I'll have that for you. But again, the fundamental activities for your toddler 2-year-old preschool classrooms: running, jumping, hopping, skipping, galloping, throwing, catching, and using your fine motor skills, your pincer movements. So ripping some paper, peeling stickers off of a sheet, you know, those type of things are really good for those fine motor skills. And then when we get into our pre-K classrooms, our after-school programs, then you get into what's called the sports-related movement phase. And these are more mature movements that can be applied to organized games, all right? Now your children can engage in vigorous exercise, organized games, and detailed crafts that increase skills and confidence. Now, with the sports-related movement phase, it's very important that the child has an interest in these activities, all right? You want to make sure that the child has an interest and that you are engaging them without shame and embarrassment, all right? Sometimes we have adults that push the sports-related movement phase onto children too aggressively, and it backfires on them instead of encourages the children. Now, if you have a child that is showing interest in soccer, they're showing interest in Little League Baseball, then by all means, we want to support that physical movement. But again, you don't want to do anything that's going to make them feel shamed or embarrassed, all right? It all comes down to your engagement and your participation. We're going to talk about that here in just a little bit too. But when you're planning your physical activities in your classrooms, it's very important that the teacher is an active participant, all right? That anything that you're asking the child to do, the teacher is willing and able to do themselves. Your participation and your excitement is going to motivate that child. If you have a teacher that is discouraged, or you have a teacher that is negative, or you have a teacher that is complaining about the physical activities, then all of those negative emotions are going to download to that child, and they're not going to be excited about physical activity either. So your involvement, your excitement is going to be critical, all right? And especially when you talk about, oh, how good my body feels after I do a physical activity, and we're getting so healthy and this is so awesome, all right? That type of encouragement is going to be really, really important. Let's talk about the value of motor development. Why did childcare licensing and the United States Department of Education and the United States Department of Health and Human Services, why did they feel it was so important to enhance physical activities in our early education programs? Well, there's a lot of reasons why motor development and physical activity is important to the child's growth. First off, it contributes to the child's overall physical health and development, all right? And I think a lot of you would agree that, our kids need more physical movement. They've become very complacent, sitting around looking at screen time, looking at tablets, looking at computers, and they're not getting outside and being physical. They're not being physical in the classroom. And even when you do a physical activity, they're complaining about it, all right? And of course, we know that being physically active, it definitely contributes to your overall health, all right? Everything in our body, it's good. Even as adults, we need to make sure that we're enhancing our motor development, our physical activity. I'm sure a lot of you would agree that, if you work out and you do 20 to 30 minutes of physical activity first thing in the morning, your entire day is different. You feel different. You have a different attitude throughout the whole day. That's why I love getting up in the morning, and before I start my day, I'll hop on my Peloton bike and I'll do a 20 or 30-minute ride, and that's how I like to start my day. I also practice my gratitude whenever I'm on my cycle, and I count my blessings and practice that gratitude again before I start tackling the day. It's just amazing the difference it makes. And when the world is not going my way and I don't get to have my ride first thing in the morning, it feels like my whole day is off. So lots and lots that's happening to your body with that physical activity. Not only for young children, this is for adults too. It kind of goes along with what I just talked about, but motor development is a huge source of pride and accomplishment. All right, pride and accomplishment go hand in hand with this. Tomorrow we're doing our 10 at 10, and my topic is fostering children's self-esteem. So a little preview to tomorrow's webinar. What can we do as early educators to help the children with pride and accomplishment? All right, making them feel worthy, making them feel good about themselves, making them feel like, they are supposed to be here. There is a reason and a purpose for their existence, all right? Motor development helps encourage that. When they can do a physical activity, it makes them feel good about themselves. And again, your encouragement is critical right there. Also, the physical activity that we do in our early education classrooms is going to prepare the child for participation in sports and other activities later in life. So the more physical activity we do with them now, the more they're going to value physical activity as an adult. All right. And we've definitely seen the outcome of this when we went through the phase back in the 90s and early 2000s where video games started becoming so popular and so many young children were addicted to those video games. They weren't getting their physical activities. They weren't getting outside, and now that entire generation are adults and they're in the workplace, and there's a lot of scientific background right there on how that lack of physical activity has definitely affected their work ethic, their integrity, their value, these type of things. So we're starting to see a little bit of that backlash. It was exciting when you did start seeing some of the video games create programs that at least involve physical activity while they were doing the game. For us in our early education programs, of course, we want to eliminate that type of screen time, and we want good old-fashioned get in the classroom, sing, dance, play your games, go out onto the playground, run, jump, skip, all of the different fundamental skills that we just talked about a bit ago. In addition to all of that, movement activities, they help develop muscle strength. All right, so they make the children strong. They strengthen our heart with the flow of the blood. They enhance our aerobic capacity, so the children are more flexible. It promotes muscle and joint flexibility, a healthy body composition. All right, so even in the young age, in the 2- and 3-year-old classrooms, the children start becoming aware of what their body looks like, and that some children's their bodies look different than other children. And of course, this is a stigma that we see a lot in our society these days is, do I look good enough? All right. But this physical activity is going to help promote that healthy body composition. Eye-hand coordination, eye-foot coordination. Those are also important when you're looking at your physical activity. And I really want you to pay attention to your children in your early education programs that when you're doing a physical activity with them, are they watching you and then trying to figure out the physical movements themselves, or are they just listening to you and they're watching their own hands or their own feet? All right? There's a big difference right there, because when they're watching themselves and their hands and feet, they're working on that eye-hand coordination or eye-foot coordination. All right, and then eventually they'll be able to look at you for direction and know that they're doing the right things with their hands and their feet. But this is something that we want to encourage and work on. It's not going to happen automatically that they are able to control that eye-hand coordination or that eye-foot coordination. All right. So when you're giving your directions, when you're doing your songs and your games and your activities, very slow, okay, description of what you want the children to do. Slow and simple with the descriptions. You don't want to be too complex and expect the child to get it right, all right? And we'll talk about that in just a little bit as well. Also, movement activities is going to, once again, your general body awareness, your visual awareness, like we said, with your eye-hand coordination and eye-foot coordination, auditory awareness, so the children's ability to listen. I bet a lot of you that are proud early educators, you're like, man, I wish the kids could listen better, all right? Physical activities is going to help with that auditory awareness. It's pretty cool. Tactile awareness, so your sensory, all right? Any activity that you can do that involves sensory is going to be beneficial. So when you're dancing with scarves or you're doing something with a sheet or a blanket, This is really good, especially those children that may have signs and symptoms pointing to a special need, such as autism or Asperger's. You want a lot of tactile awareness or sensory related activities. That's going to help encourage them. And then directional awareness, all right? Directional awareness. And you're going to start, the younger the child, the simpler the direction. And then as the child gets older, you can add a little bit more and a little bit more to the direction, all right? But that's why, once again, your involvement is critical, all right? And that's why the adult has to be willing and able to participate in the activities with the child. Amongst all of those great physical attributes, there's a lot of social and emotional benefits to movement activities. Again, a preview to my webinar tomorrow on fostering children's self-esteem. But the social and emotional benefits include just enjoyment for the children. They're happy, they're excited whenever they're doing physical activities. It provides an opportunity for the children to feel successful, all right? And it promotes cooperation with other children. That's fantastic. And the more that we can do that promotes cooperation, the better, all right? Also, physical activity contributes to cognitive learning, all right? Cognitive learning, problem solving, language development, exploration, discovery, and creativity. All of this also comes from physical activity. I want you to think, as a child growing up, how many of you learned something from a song or game, and whenever I'm doing this training in person, we usually kind of demonstrate some things that you've learned as a child through a song or a game, like the state capitals or the presidents of the United States of America. And a lot of you, even as adults, you can still sing these songs with the little hand motion or the foot motions that go along with it. You could be 40, 50 years old and you still remember that song and game you did in elementary school to help you learn the presidents or to help you learn the state capitals. Or how many of you, even as a grown adult, when you're trying to alphabetize something, you sing the ABC song in your head, or some of you actually sing it out loud. All right, we learned our ABCs through song and movement. All right, so you can definitely see the benefit of cognitive learning, language development, exploration, discovery, and creativity through physical activity. So pretty cool stuff. Next, I want to talk about body awareness, all right? And body awareness refers to a student's ability to know where his or her body is in space, all right? Because when you think about your toddler 2-year-olds, they are really working on developing body awareness, and they don't kind of realize where their body is at in space. And that's why in a toddler 2-year-old classroom, you see a lot of the kids that bump into each other and run over each other because they're trying to figure out where their body is at in space, all right? That's been, one of the very difficult things to work with as we've gone through the coronavirus and COVID-19, and we've got all of these, recommendations for physical distancing and trying to keep within 6 feet apart of one another. And, as adults, we comprehend that and we can be conscious of that and say, hey, I need to stay within 6 feet of other people, so that we can try to control the spread of this virus. But a young child, a toddler, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, they're still developing that body awareness. They're still trying to develop their, where their body is at in space, and trying to tell a 2, 3, 4-year-old to stay 6 feet away from another child, that's just not comprehending, all right? Because they don't have the body awareness down yet, all right? So, some things that you want to look at to see, when I'm planning my physical activities in my classroom, do I need to plan more activities that involve body awareness development? If the student appears to be clumsy, all right, it may not be that they're just clumsy and they drop things. They're still working on body awareness and where they're at in space. That if I'm going to set this book down on this table, how far down do I need to go before the book lands on the table? Or they just drop it because they still don't understand that space between here and the table. If a child appears to be disorganized, that's a sign of we need to work on body awareness. If they fall out of their chair, sometimes you see a toddler 2-year-old just fall out of the chair. That's a good sign that we need to work on body awareness. They break things. They have a difficult time moving their arms and legs. They have a difficult time putting on a jacket. Have you ever really thought about this? Putting on a jacket or a sweater, there's a lot of steps right there. There's a lot of skills that you have to practice to successfully put on a jacket. And for a young child who is struggling with body awareness, this could be a very difficult task, all right? So, but helping a child and coaching a child put on their jacket is actually a physical activity, all right? So pretty cool stuff right there. They have a difficult time standing in line. They have poorly developed fine motor skills. They're unable to climb. They push too hard on their pencil or crayon, causing it to break. These are all signs that we need to work on body awareness. So what do? What are some things that we can do to help a child with body awareness? Carrying a stack of books, all right? So, age appropriate, we want to focus on what is age appropriate right here. But, give the child a stack of books or something, or some empty boxes, small boxes, and ask them to carry them across the room, all right? Now, the reason where the physical activity comes in right here is that you may notice with some children, when they walk, they look at their feet as they walk, all right? When you're carrying a stack of books or a stack of empty boxes, and you ask a child to move from one spot to another, and they're doing it like this, they're not going to be able to see their feet. And you're going to start noticing them kind of being clumsy or wobbling around, or maybe even dropping because they drop the books or the blocks to be able to see their feet. And you're going to encourage them, you're going to coach them, but this is a great activity to work on body awareness. Push-ups and pull-ups, all right? Y'all remember push-ups and pull-ups? As a child in PE class, you were like, no, not push-ups or pull-ups. But that's actually a great physical activity to help with body awareness. Now again, this needs to be age appropriate, and you don't want to shame or embarrass the child whenever they're not successful. They're not going to be successful up front, but you can do push-ups with them and activities on the floor with push-ups, or even up against the wall where they put their hands up against the wall and they move their body like this, all right? That would be age appropriate. Pull-ups, probably not going to be able to do this because we do have some childcare licensing regulations on equipment that allow the children to dangle. So you might have a difficult time getting away with the pull-ups, but you can definitely do push-ups, and that helps with a body awareness because they're going to learn when their arms are out, whether you're doing it up against the wall or you're doing it on the floor. They're going to start becoming very aware and conscious of the space between them and the wall, or between them and the floor, as they're doing their push-ups, all right? And plus, they're building that muscle development. Jumping activities, all right? Jumping from one spot to another in a safe and supervised manner. Playing on your playground equipment. Simon Says, all right, a game as old-fashioned Simon Says. This is a great activity that will promote body awareness, and then having the child lay on their back and putting their feet up against the wall. Have them take their shoes off first because we don't want it to damage the wall, but then kind of pushing up against the wall and feeling the pressure on their body. That's going to help with body awareness too. All right, so there's some good physical activities for you to add to your lesson plan. Next, we're going to talk about motor planning. All right, motor planning. And motor planning is the student's ability to figure out how to do a new physical activity task. All right, so we talked about learning directions and the ability to follow directions. This is a big part of being successful with physical activity. Again, your encouragement, your enthusiasm is going to be very important here. You don't want to give too much direction at one time, especially the younger the child. So some signs that a child might be struggling with motor planning, if the child appears to be messy, if they have an awkward grip on their pencil or crayon, if they have a difficult time jumping, running, or dancing without falling down, because sometimes you start doing a movement activity and boom, the kid goes down. All right, some adults go down when you try to jump, run, or dance. They have trouble finishing a task on time. They imitate other students rather than trying to figure out the physical activity themselves. So you could be doing a song and dance with the kids, and you could be giving them the directions, but they're sitting here watching the child next to them and imitating the child next to them rather than trying to listen to the direction and do it themselves. All right, we see that quite often right there. They simply just cannot follow direction, even when you give small, simple directions. They may resist or act out and refuse to do the physical activity, and sometimes we see that. Hey guys, it's time for physical activity. We're going to do this song and dance, or we're going to play this game, and immediately the child starts throwing a tantrum or does something intentional to get in trouble because they're trying to get themselves out of that physical activity. That's a big sign that the child is struggling with motor planning. All right. So what can we do to help the child with motor planning? Break down the steps in very small steps. All right. So break it down as simple as possible. Pictures. All right. Take pictures and create some picture boards of the song or dance or activity that you're wanting the children to do, and step by step take a picture of what this looks like. You could even create a routine book of the activity to give to these children that are struggling with motor planning, and that's going to be very helpful for them. Do a lot of rolling and jumping and ball activities. All right, rolling and jumping and ball activities. So either you're rolling a ball back and forth, all right, you're having the children jump from one space to another, all right, bouncing a ball back and forth. These are all really simple activities. It's going to help with motor planning right there. Like I said with the pictures, put some little boxes down there so that it's kind of like a checklist. All right, we're doing this physical activity, and as I go through each step, they can kind of check it off and check it off. That's going to be very helpful right there. When you're doing the physical activities in your classroom, you want to try to avoid as many distractions as possible. That way they can stay focused on the physical activities, and they can stay focused on the direction. If you're in the middle of a song or dance, or you're in the middle of a game, and someone keeps coming into the classroom and interrupting you or distracting the children, it's going to be really hard for them to get right back, where you're supposed to be. All right. Lots of physical activity using music with rhythm. All right, and you want to keep a steady beat. Keep a steady beat. This is going to help with their motor planning right there, that rhythm. And then, like I said, the visual cues or pictures are going to be helpful as well. I also want you to be aware of what's called bilateral integration. All right, bilateral integration is the child's ability to use both sides of their body during an activity, all right? So they're using the left side of their body and they're doing the right side of their body. So for example, jumping jacks. When you're doing jumping jacks with the children, you're using both sides of the body. Now you're doing it at the same time. My arms are going up, my arms are going down at the same time. Now what would happen if we did a reverse jumping jack, so that when the left arm went up, the right arm went down, and then it flipped back and forth. So you're using both sides of your body, but in an opposite motion, all right? This is a great activity to help with your kids. And then, of course, you're doing your feet at the same time. So when we're doing jumping jacks, we're landing with our feet together, we're spreading our feet apart, we're bringing them back together. But you're going to notice a lot of times that when you're doing jumping jacks with young children, their arms may be doing this, but their feet are staying still. They can only do one at a time, either the arms or the feet, but it's very difficult for them to move all four, left arm, left leg, right leg, all four at the same time. So you're going to practice these skills with them. The other thing I want you to focus on is crossing the midline, all right? Crossing the midline. And I want you to pretend like you've got a line that goes right down the middle of your body, right down the middle of your body. And you want to do activities that require the child to cross their midline, all right? Crossing their midline. Believe it or not, and you're going to notice this, that there's a lot of kids that have a very difficult time crossing their midline. So like if I had this pen right here and I put the pen on the table and I tell the child, pick up the pen, all right? Now, if I just reach out and pick up the pen, I got it. But what if I put the pen way over here and I say, pick up the pen? Now, what we want the child to do is to be able to reach over, cross the midline, and pick up the pen. I've got it. What you're going to see is that if I'm standing here and I put the pen over here like this, and I say, pick up the pen, they will move their body and then pick up the pen without crossing their midline. All right? And you've probably seen this, but you've just never been conscious of it or aware of it. But this is really important to look out for right there. All right? So, that's, students turning or moving their whole body to avoid crossing their midline. How many of y'all have seen kids when they're coloring? All right, they'll, like say I'm right-handed, they're only going to color the sheet on the right side. And when it comes to color this side over here, they'll either move the sheet of paper over, or they'll move their body to color the other side, because they can't take their crayon and move past their midline to color on this side of the paper, all right? And you'll notice that they'll move their whole body, or they'll move the sheet to do the left side of the paper, all right? They don't hold the paper down whenever they're coloring, because again, they're moving it back and forth. I've even seen it where, you put a color sheet or something, an open-ended art project in front of the child, and they'll color the right side of the page, and then they'll take the crayon and put it in the left hand and color the left side of the page. They're not crossing that midline right there, all right? So those are things that we want to be aware of. Some physical activities that you can add to your plan to help children with bilateral integration and crossing the midline. Carrying some heavy objects with two hands. Now again, you want this to be age appropriate. You don't want to give them something too heavy, but being able to walk across the room carrying those objects is going to help with this. Jumping jacks, like I already demonstrated and talked about. Mixing bowl activities. I love this one. Get a good mixing bowl. There doesn't even have to be anything in it, with a wooden spoon or a whisk, and have the kids stir something up in a mixing bowl. This is going to require them to cross their midline while holding the mixing bowl and mixing something. Now, if you want to put something in there, that's even better. I've worked with a lot of kids in my past that were hyperactive. Kids that either had been diagnosed with ADD or ADHD, or a lot of times children that had not been diagnosed, but the signs and symptoms were there. When I used to work with these kids, I did a lot of activities with mixing bowls, all right? Because this was connecting left brain and right brain, connecting the two hemispheres. It's crossing their midline. But for a child that is hyperactive, these type of mixing bowl activities is actually very soothing for them. All right, very soothing for them. And you can make it fun and exciting. Don't make it a chore. Definitely don't make it punishment. All right, you want to make it fun and exciting, but there's a lot of really cool benefits to that right there. Jumping rope. Jumping rope needs to be supervised. The adult needs to be involved in jump roping activities, but this is great for bilateral integration and crossing the midline. Basketball, simple basketball skills, clapping games, and we do a lot of clapping games with the children. All right, actually being able to have your hands meet the other hand, that's a tough skill for some children, and they're gonna miss. All right, that's why they hit the other kid next to them or hit themselves sometimes. And so slow clapping games. All right, and we're clapping, and now we're going to clap to the left, and now we're going to clap over our head. All right, we're going to hold one leg up and clap under our leg. All right, these are fun clapping games. Now again, we're transitioning through COVID-19 right now. We're working with young children while also practicing physical distancing. So, a lot of the clapping games that we do in our early education classroom involves the child to clap with another child or an adult and do different clapping games. And, we do a lot of this, especially those of us that practice conscious discipline. We do a lot of activities that involve clapping with other people because we're getting that eye contact, we're getting that physical touch, all right? We're present, we're having fun. Those are all very important elements. But with the physical distancing that we're having to practice right now, we really don't want those kids clapping and touching the other children or the adult. So we're having to modify a lot of these rituals and games to where the child is just clapping with themselves instead of clapping with someone else. We still want to promote these rituals. We still want to promote these social and emotional games. We're just having to modify them now to where we're doing the clapping with ourselves and we're clapping like this instead of clapping up against one another. Those are some of the things that we're doing right there. We're clapping our hips right here, clapping behind our back. All right, a lot of modifications that we can still do. All right, musical instruments. I know teachers are like, oh, I need Advil, I need Tylenol, the musical instruments in the classroom. But there's so many fundamental skills that they're learning while learning to play musical instruments. And I love homemade musical instruments too. I believe I still have a document on my website, timthetrainer.com, on some homemade musical instruments that you can make in your classroom. 2 square, 4 square games, jumping with their feet apart, and they have their feet together, and then you have them jump and land with their feet apart. This is a really cool skill that you can do with the children. And again, you're going to have to practice it because they may not be able to do that right off the bat. I told you about when I used to work with children that are hyperactive, and we did a lot of mixing bowl activities with them. Something else that I would do is, you would have the big jars of pickles you know, the plastic, you know, jars, not the glass ones, but you would get the plastic. And especially in our early education programs, sometimes we would buy mayonnaise or ketchup, you know, that are in the big plastic containers with the lids. Well, after your cook gets done with those, don't throw them away. All right, clean them out and let's put them in the classroom, because, you know, opening those containers and screwing the lid on and screwing the lid off is a physical activity. All right. And it's going to help with your bilateral integration. It's going to help with crossing the midline. Again, for your hyperactive children, it's great soothing activities, because there's a lot of skills to be able to screw on and open a container. All right, they're going to have to work on that, but it's great. Play-Doh on the table and getting your rolling pins and rolling the Play-Doh out and making it thin. This is a physical activity that you can add to your lesson plans, but don't just put the block of Play-Doh down and roll it back and forth. You want to encourage the kids to roll diagonal, because now we're crossing our midline right there. All right. Skipping is a fun activity that's going to help you as well. I just wanted to go over some tips for adding music to your movement. I think physical activity is always more enjoyable and encouraging to the children when you can add music to it. So again, the adult has to be an active, enthusiastic participant during singing and movement games. Your involvement is going to encourage the children to join in. All right, now, I know that some of you can't sing. I cannot sing, all right? I can stand on a stage and talk to 1,000 people, no problem. But if you ask me to sing, it's a different story, all right? Children don't care. That's the great thing about this. They don't care that, you know, you can't sing and you can't carry a tune and you have no idea what keys are, you know. It's all right. The kids aren't going to judge you. They just want to be present with their adult. They just want to be engaged with their adult, and they want to sing with you. Talk to the children about different ways that they can move their bodies and different songs that we can sing. Find a way to incorporate music into your movement throughout the entire day, you know. It's so funny because as I've gone through my, you know, my phases and, you know, gone through time of doing trainings and coaching, you know, teachers, you know, I used to say things like, you know, being a preschool teacher is like being in a Disney movie, you know. How many of y'all just break out into song, you know, throughout the day? You can be doing whatever activity and you just start singing, you know. You know, and then I went through the phase that I used your preschool classroom as like an episode of Glee. You know, you just started singing a song in the middle of the day, you know, or your classroom is a Broadway show, or I think we're back now to Disney since Disney Plus is big and popular. Whatever analogy or comparison you want to use, but incorporate music into your program all throughout the day. That's a whole different webinar that I can do on the benefits of movement. Find some music that you can put in your classroom that is just the music and no voice. The children want to hear you sing. They want to hear your voice, not what is recorded right there. Children love to hear their teacher's voice, all right? And the more you sing, the more it's going to encourage them to use their own voice. Not just for singing, but for problem solving and cooperation throughout life right there. When you're doing these physical activities with your children, have fun, all right? Have fun with it. This is greatness right here. Here's the beautiful thing about all of this. You're getting paid. to do all of this. Isn't that super cool? You're actually getting paid to play and do physical activities with the kids. How awesome is this? All right, so last thing that I want to talk about here is we're going to go through a physical activity checklist for each of the different age groups. So again, those of you that are taking notes, here are some great note-taking opportunity, but I'm also going to post all of this on my website for you as well. All right, so physical activity checklist for infants, a gross motor checklist for infants, holding their head up. Okay, so whenever you see the child be able to hold their head up and eventually be able to hold their chest up. All right, these are items that you want to work on. A child rolling from side to side. All right, so you want to encourage that rolling from side to side. So when you're doing your supervised tummy time, okay, the child is down on their tummy, have the adult go to one side of the child and, you know, where's Leslie? Leslie, where are you? And when the child eventually looks, there you are, Leslie. And then get up and move to the other side. Okay, now, where's Leslie? Where's Leslie? And they're going to have to move their little head over to the opposite direction. There you are, you did it. You moved your head over to the left side. And you're going to flip over and go to the opposite. Back and forth, back and forth. Swiping activities, all right? So when you have dangling toys and you want the child to swipe, all right? That's a skill that you work on in your infant classroom. Crawling, and definitely you want the children to crawl before they walk. If you ever have a child that starts walking without crawling, you still need to get down on your hands and knees and work with that child on crawling, all right? Even as, you know, older children, I know a lot of public school teachers that before they take their standardized test in the classroom, second, third, fourth graders, they'll get them down on their hands and knees and do crawling activities with the children before they take their standardized test. Crawling, all right, is going to help with the brain with patterns and sequences and get the brain moving in this particular order. Remember, your brain is a pattern-seeking organ, and it works best when there are patterns and sequences, all right? Reading, writing, a lot of your cognitive skills are all based on patterns and sequences. So when you can incorporate physical movement into that, it's going to help the child to be successful. Crawling is important right there, all right? Holding a bottle. All right, holding a bottle is going to be a good physical activity for the child, and eventually being able to move the bottle up to where they can drink their milk or whatever, and then turning their body from side to side. So when you have that infant in your lap and you're supporting them, you're going to be encouraged then to move their body from side to side. All right, a gross motor checklist for toddlers, so 12 to 18-month-old children. 12 to 18-month-old children. When they're starting to crawl, get a ball. Roll a ball across the room and have them crawl after the ball. It's kind of like fetch, right? But crawling after a ball. Pulling up on a sturdy piece of furniture that you have in the classroom. Being able to walk with support. So, you know, they're holding onto the table and they're walking with support, and eventually walking without support. All right, squatting. So when that child is holding on to that sturdy piece of furniture, encourage them to kind of do squats right here. This is a physical activity that you can encourage in your classroom. And remember, you're an active, excited participant, so you're getting your squatting in and working on those thighs while you're right there in the classroom. Walking backwards with toddlers. All right, so it's like, a toddler, we're just trying to get them to walk forward. We want them to walk without falling down. But then a great activity is to encourage the child to walk backwards. And you'll notice that the kid will actually turn and look. All right, so you want to practice skills where they're keeping their head forward and walking backwards without turning around. And we're going to practice that right there. Note that this particular age group, they need a lot of practice on what happens when they step on an object, how far can they lean without tipping over, and how fast can they go without stumbling. So, you know, sometimes you can put one of your wooden blocks that you have in your classroom and just put one wooden block down and have a child have their right foot on the wooden block and their left foot on the floor, so they're off balance, and see how the child manages that. All right, you might see that they start to fall, or it's very difficult for them to be a little off balance, and then switch it and put the block under the left foot and the right foot on the floor. You know, activities where you're like, all right, let's see how far we can lean. How far can we lean before we fall down? All right, and then switch sides and do this. This is a great physical activity to help with that balance and coordination. And we all know in our toddler classrooms, sometimes when they're running across that playground, they just lose momentum and they fall, all right? So you kind of want to note that when you're doing your anecdotal records and you're keeping up with your developmental milestones. How far can a child run before they fall down? Because eventually for a toddler, they're going to lose that momentum and they're going to go down. We want to do this in a safe manner to where they're not injured, but you want to kind of make note of that. Your older toddlers, so your 18 to 24-month-olds, we talked about carrying a toy while walking. So are they able to hold on to an object and walk across the room with it? Do activities like, you know, we're going to pour some cement into our body. So we're going to open up our head and pour in cement, and we're going to become stiff like a statue. All right, and now we're going to walk across the room like we're a statue and be all stiff. And then you can do activities where we're going to take all of our bones out of our body. So everyone pull your bones out. And now we're just a big old flexible pile of Play-Doh, and we're going to run and walk across the room like we don't have any bones in our body. These are all great physical activities for them. Simple activities where you can play a game just getting into a chair and getting out of a chair, sitting down, standing up, sitting down, standing up is really a great physical activity for a toddler. If those of you that have stairs in your program, walking up and down stairs, holding on to a handrail with one hand, all right? Because a lot of times they're going to want to use both hands to walk upstairs, but we're going to do this just holding with one hand. And again, you're going to closely supervise this and be very close distance to help keep them safe, but being able to walk up the stairs with one hand. And you'll notice that they'll take a step up with their left foot, they'll step up on one step, they'll go their right foot, and then left foot up, right foot. Where, you know, as adult, when we're going upstairs, left foot goes up a stair, right foot goes up the next step, left foot goes up the next step. But you'll notice with the kids, they'll do one step at a time. All right, so you're going to practice with the left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. All right, great physical activity. And something else with your older toddlers, standing on one foot. So kind of like the flamingo pose, all right? And we're going to put our foot up here by our knee, and we're going to stand on one foot and see how long we can do this. And now we're going to switch, all right, and do it with the opposite foot. When you're doing your physical activities, always keep in mind that we're always going to have a dominant side, all right? You're either going to be right side dominant or left side dominant. Most people are right side dominant, but not everyone. We have some people that are left side dominant. So, you know, if I say let's stand on one foot, standing on your right foot and balancing is really easy for some people. But when I say switch now, and we're going to go to left foot, You know, even look at me. I'm on left foot now and I'm like, whoa, I'm a little wobbly, all right? Because I'm a right side dominant person, okay? 2-year-old children, so you're 24 to 36 month old, balance beam when they're walking on a balance beam with both feet, all right? That's something that you can do. And even if you don't have a balance beam in your classroom, use some of your wooden blocks from your block center, or just a simple piece of tape that you stretch across the floor and you have the kids walk on that piece of tape or walk on the wooden block. Catching a large ball with their arms and their body. So I would encourage like an inflatable beach ball for your 2-year-olds. And you're going to notice that when you toss a ball to them, they catch the ball with their entire body. All right? That's normal for a 2-year-old child for them to catch the ball with their entire body. It's almost like they're hugging it. Now, when we get into the 3- and 4-year-olds, we're going to start catching the ball with just their hand. All right, catching the ball with just their hand. All right, climbing on your playground equipment right there, jumping forwards and then jumping backwards, jumping forwards and jumping backwards, jumping from the bottom step of your stairs down to the floor safely. And again, you're going to be there properly supervising this. Put a small object on the floor, like a piece of block or a figure out of your block center, and have the kids jump over it, all right? It's kind of like Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jumped over the candlestick. But have the children try to jump over a small object that is safe for them. That's great for your 2-year-olds right there. Again, running a small distance and avoiding obstacles. So get some of the little traffic cones and you can get the small ones, or just simple objects out of the classroom and make a simple obstacle course that the child is running around. All right, great for your 2-year-olds right there. Standing on one foot, once again, the flamingo we talked about, standing on your tippy toes and then coming down, standing on your tippy toes, throwing a playground ball back and forth. But again, we're trying to use our hands to catch it and not the entire body. Walking backwards once again, and then walking up and down stairs using alternating feet. Now with our 3-year-old children, again, obstacle courses that you can create right there in your classroom or out on the playground, that the children run around different obstacles. And again, you're giving them the direction and we're having fun with it. Jumping over a string or an object in a safe manner. Galloping. So we talked about skipping earlier. You know, skipping, you're alternating your feet when you skip. Galloping is kind of like riding that horse, you know, and you have one leg in front of the other and you gallop across the classroom. So there's a big difference between skipping and galloping. You're going to notice that skipping is a lot easier for some children. Galloping is actually difficult, even for some adults. If I were to tell you to gallop across the classroom, it might be difficult for some of us as adults. Hops on one foot, so we're going to do activities where we hop on one foot, jumping forward a distance and kind of mark it. All right, how far did you jump and can you jump further tomorrow? Kind of keep that on your record right there. Good old-fashioned kickball, so rolling the ball to the child and having them kick it. You're going to start with the ball being stationary and then the child just kicking the ball. And then we'll eventually, we're in the 3-year-old classroom now, get to where we can roll the ball to them and they're going to have to use their eye-foot coordination to kick the ball next, all right? Great fun activity right there. So start off with kicking a stationary ball, move to rolling the ball to them and kicking it. All right, we can play a game where we run across the room on our tippy toes and then we run across the room normal. And then we run across the room on our tippy toes and then we do it normal right there. And with our 3-year-olds, we're going to practice throwing a recreational ball, so get the inflatable balls, and we're going to throw it underhanded back and forth to each other. So we're going to take turns throwing the ball back and forth underhanded and catching it with our two hands. All right. And then once again, walking up and down stairs, holding on safely. And last, we're going to move to our 4-year-olds, our pre-K classroom. And here is some gross motor items that you can practice in your 4-year-old classroom. If you have a good, safe mat, and so you want a good soft mat in your classroom, attempting to do a somersault, all right, where we go head first and we roll. All right, this is going to be difficult for some children. You want to do it in a safe manner. And remember, you need to be an active, enthusiastic participant. Bouncing a ball before you catch it. So instead of tossing a ball back and forth, we're going to bounce the ball once and then catch it. So throw the ball on the floor and then we catch it. That's something that they're going to have to practice. That's a big skill right there. Catching the ball with both hands and then trying to catch a smaller ball with one hand right there. Now in the 3-year-old room, we practice tossing a ball back and forth underhanded. Now that we're in our 4- and 5-year-old classrooms, we're going to practice tossing a ball back and forth to each other overhanded and being able to catch it. All right, so there's a big difference right there. Hopping on one foot a distance, jumping forward 10 times without falling down, playing a game where we're going to jump as high as we can. All right, everyone, on the count of 3, I want you to jump as high as you can. 1, 2, 3, jump. All right, and all right, now we're going to try to go higher. Okay, 1, 2, 3, jump, and we're going to try to go higher. Great activity. You may have noticed through a lot of this, we've done a lot of jumping. There's actually a ton of benefits from jumping, all right, both for children and for adults. It's pretty awesome stuff. And then once again, being able to walk on that balance beam, whether you've got an actual balance beam or you're using blocks out of your block center or a simple piece of tape on the floor, and having the children be able to walk on that balance beam and eventually be able to do it without looking down. All right. So lots of good tips right here on enhancing that physical activity in your classroom, learning what is age appropriate for each of the different children, learning the fundamental skills for the children in the classroom. So, you know, when we talked at the beginning of the webinar that we need 90 minutes of physical activity in your classrooms, some of you, and even some of you that I've had conversation with, you're like, how in the world am I going to incorporate 90 minutes of physical activity into my classroom each day? With the list that I just gave you and everything that we've gone over, man, 90 minutes is nothing. We're going to be able to get this done, get this out there, and have so much fun with it. And there's so much more that than what I talked about right here. I am a big advocate for promoting yoga in the classroom, even in an infant toddler classroom, promoting yoga that is age appropriate for the children. Meditation. Start introducing meditation activities in the classroom. Before you start your physical activities, some stretching with your yoga and simple meditation is going to be very helpful for them. You can incorporate this every day into your program and enhance that flexibility, clear that mind, get all of that junk out of your mind before you can learn and have fun with your physical activities. So right there, you know, that's 5 minutes of your physical activity that you can knock out just with those items right there. All right, very good. I hope this was helpful to you. You can complete your online worksheet. I'll have that up for you. If those of you that need a certificate of completion after watching this video today, complete your online worksheet. There's a $5 fee. I'll have that up on Facebook Live here in just a moment. It'll also be on my website, timthetrainer.com, under online trainings. This was a super fun webinar today, and I hope you enjoyed it and you learned some good stuff and you're excited about enhancing physical activities into your program. Feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email if you have any questions. And I hope to see and talk to all of you very, very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.